first Cambridgeshire carp, that one is. So we're here on the beautiful and very historic St Ives Lagoon, and we've come lucky. A bit of watercraft, a bit of guesswork. Sometimes you get a little bit lucky when you're carp fishing, and an educated guess as to whereabouts these fish would be, and a bit of information off Gordon. I wouldn't pretend otherwise. That they were over on this side, on the old lakes. I'll go into the topography of the lake a little bit later, but one half's older than the other half, and therefore they've got pretty different digs, you know, shallower and more humps and stuff. Got down yesterday evening, had a good couple of circuits backwards and forwards, but it seems like they're just getting on the bait after a little bit of a quiet spell, and we've timed it to perfection. Here we've got a lovely 26-pound Cambridgeshire carp, my very first Cambridgeshire carp, so absolutely elated with this one. She's had enough time in the air, so I'm going to lay her down, get her back in, but just say I'm loving Cambridge already. This is a cracking mirror. So chuffed. Well, best bit, like they always say, is putting them back nice and safely. And this sprightly little male is going back into a lovely rich lake. There's snails and all sorts coming in the edge. Massive hatches of insect casks blowing down on the wind. They won't be very long at all, and he'll be up to absolute prime condition. Not that he isn't already. Look at the tail on it, it's absolutely smashing. Loving that, loving Cambridge already. She's ready to go. Off we go. Oi! So, that was an exciting morning. It was really cool. Having arrived yesterday afternoon, I was here about 3 o'clock, and I lapped it, and in the end, just made a decision based on two key factors. One, the conditions, and knowing that the wind was going to quarter around ever so slightly more into this side of the lake and into this specific corner, which is a swim called the Peanut. And also because it gave me a really good view of the whole of the windward side of the lake and the old side, which has all come good on a couple of key levels. Like, yeah, we've had a couple of bites and caught my first Cambridge carp. Oi, oi! Absolute result that was. But it's also meant that we've seen fish show this morning from about 7 o'clock onwards, and they've been largely over long towards the point kind of thing, up the side of the island. I've checked with Gordon because I don't know the lay of the land on there, and he said, yeah, that's that swim's water. So we're going to wrap up in a minute, buzz round there. The wind's more behind us, which will make the casting and the baiting and getting everything out there nice and easy and accurate, or hopefully nice and easy and accurate. I seem to have disasters all the time fishing lately, but that's the plan. Get round onto the point, right hand front swim, and then we can cover the areas where essentially we've probably seen at least a dozen shows this morning. Like, it was really noticeable that that was the zone that they came from early on in the morning. If we don't get a bite, we can always chuck the gear back in the vans, zip round here. I'm going to prime it before we go, and have this ready for the morning 8, 9 o'clock kind of thing. If things aren't happening over there, we've got another option. So it's time to reel them in and get the gear in the fan and get going. Clean as a whistle. There's not a scrap of weed up here. Oh. That'll do for the whiting rod. Let's not thrash the living daylights out of her. We've busted a move. We're round here. It does give. From over there, you know, don't know the lake, you don't know the angles, the swims, the distances necessarily, and it always looks a bit skewy from the side, like it's going to be a long way, but normally it's not, and it's not. So I've just led it over the areas that we saw fish showing, and it's all clean as a whistle. I was expecting this place to be a weedy nightmare with like thrashing it up to a foam, finding clear spots, but there's hardly a scrap of weed. We should probably be doing the opposite and trying to find little beds of Canadian, but this is where they were showing. So the bottom seems firm, glidier in some spots. Certainly the right hand rod's beautiful and glassy. The other rods that I'm using, a beautiful great big shed-like building on the far side as a marker. The roof line on it, they just go down with lovely firm thumps. I was thinking I'm going to have to put on little pop-up rigs, but it's so clean, I'm going to put on little wafter rigs, probably just D's because you can hurl them, they never tangle. And despite rhetoric out there at the moment, they're a fantastic big fish rig. And we're going to stick with them. The super crack bait on D's, wafters, and a smattering of delicious sweet peanuts, the odd tiger nut, and the super boilie over the top of it, and we'll see what the morning brings. Baited the other spot as we left. Life is good. We're going to see what comes along in the morning, and in the meantime I'm going to finish my Grecian wonder lager called Mythos and get the paint sticks in and get everything sorted. But happy days. Look at that. That is gorgeous, isn't it? Earlier on, when I was talking about what we've been up to on this trip to St Ives, I mentioned I was fishing D-rigs. God, where do you start? Such a simple, easy to tie presentation that if you look at it in the context of the mechanics of the D, just allowing the hook to literally just drop into a prone position when the hook bait's sucked in, you're really looking at a way of creating that, but in an almost infallible, tangle-proof kind of presentation. It's one that generally we tie with stiff hook link materials or semi-stiff hook link materials, monofilaments. And in this case, I'm using 25-pound tint link. You can also use low memory hook links like Think Link as well. But really, essentially, it's that Helicopter and semi-stiff hook link material means that you can smash it almost anywhere, compensating for the depth of sediment or light weed on the bottom by moving the stop up a little bit, and it will go out there tangle free. It's a presentation I personally use a lot in other circumstances, like when I'm snag fishing, casting up against bushes, because you can allow the lead to travel in and know that you've got virtually no chance that as the lead's going through the water and dropping down that you're not getting it wrapped. For such an immensely successful big fish rig, this is just got to be one of the simplest presentations there is on the planet to tie. Using either a fluorocarbon or a mono hook link material, you simply tie a knotless going up to opposite the tip of the point. So depending upon the diameter of the material, we're really only talking about like between 7 and 9 turns necessary. And then mounting on the D that you form by tucking the tag through the eye, either a little swivel, like one of our ring swivels, or one of our little hook swivels, size 20. Really nice, tidy, and from a personal perspective, I really like just the little tiny swivel because it stops the very rare occasions when the boilie can wrap around the shank. In this case, I've got it terminated at the lead end, the swivel end, with just a simple figure of 8 loop knot. This is fixed in place on the quick change swivel with one of our little crook beads, which just simply allows the whole hook to react, twist and act unimpeded as it goes into the fish's mouth, and the speed that the rig reacts is absolutely vital. Say the fish is just moving around feeding on a tight bed of bait, a scattering of boilies, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you want that hook to go in, react and turn instantaneously, and that's when the damage is done, that's when the fish is hooked. Elements of the rig that you really need to get right to get the most out of it include making sure that the D is perpendicular with the back of the hook. That way it makes sure that the hook will drop straight whichever direction the fish takes it from. It's always going to lay down flat. And what I do to make sure that the hook exits the eye nicely is whichever way you're rotating the whipping on your knotless knot, as you bring it through, use the tag end to straighten it. So if you're whipping round in an anti-clockwise direction, hold the mono or the fluorocarbon over in that direction and then poke the tag end of the D through and blob it there. And that way you'll find it will naturally keep the hook and the hook link in a nicer, straighter direction. It's really simple. It's caught an immense number of big fish from all over the world. There's a reason why big fish anglers use it. It's reliable, it's strong, and it does the job perfectly. It's the D-rig. Whatever fishing you do, there's genuinely not a single thing that you put on your reel that will cover every situation. We all have our favourites. I love fluorocarbon, but I also recognise that in certain circumstances, when it's weedy or when I'm fishing near snags and I want absolute control, then the heavy SPX braid gives me a real advantage in terms of fish control and extracting them out of weed beds. At range, like we've had fishing over on Mix Point here on St Ives, I've had to swap over to a new test mono. Like it's a 0.40, but it's got a little bit more pigment intake, so that makes it a little bit more subtler, and it meant I could easily hit the ranges that I needed to get, ranges that probably my little office arms wouldn't attain if I was trying to smack the SPX out there. I'm firmly of the opinion that you need to carry all 3 types of line to cover all circumstances. Yeah, it costs a little bit in terms of spools to go on your reels, but whether you choose to put OGX on or SBX for weedy lakes, or a bit of the new fluorocarbon, which I may or may not be testing at the moment, that has been proving really very effective indeed, then you're covered no matter what angling situation you find yourself in. first evening. It's been an action-packed day. I've even been doing some spodding, which is like, oh. I come out in hives as spodding is not my favourite pastime in the world, but sometimes needs must, and there's no other way of getting out there without breaking fishery rules, and we never condone that kind of behaviour. So the rods are out, we're around in mixed swim on the point. We're where we saw the shows this morning, the concentration of the shows, before the fish drifted down later on in the morning down towards the far corner, and the traps are set. Rick's went out first chuck each time. It's like, you should get a little badge saying Rick's went out first time. It's flat. I was surprised by the lack of weed like we had over in that corner. The lake's generally very weedy by repute, but it seems this year they've had a series of algae blooms, a couple of green ones and now this brown one, and it must have knocked it right back, which means the fish are flighty, but you can spread the bait, which with my spomming is a very good job too. And we're set, we're sorted, we're going to settle down for the evening. Gordy says it's rare to get a bite before midnight, and the peak time on the moon phase, I'm reliably informed, is 6 o'clock in the morning, so a 6 o'clock alarm shriek would be lovely, but we'll keep you posted. After a long day yesterday, last night was one of those coma sleeps, punctuated with the occasional stirrage and just to see whether anything was happening. A quiet night, but right now the light levels have dipped from an early morning peak, you know, those lovely summer mornings when it's a clear sky and the morning's kind of like just beautiful pink sky as the sun comes up. But right now, there's loads of activity out in the pond, like mainly up again on the old lake end of the lagoon. Oddly, and carp being carp, they're showing mainly long over, not far from where we were yesterday, like between the peanut and the swampy swim. We've seen, oh man, at least 15 head pokes, possibly more, and it's just in the flat water. It's a beautiful morning. Loads of fizz lines as they're truffling and flanking in the silt. They've been having a proper feed this morning. A little bit beyond where we're fishing, like probably another 20-25 yards out, the main bulk of them. There's a real concentration out there. We're watching them on the bins and it's just like so exciting watching them active and happy. But the way things stand, we'll probably give it another couple of hours in here. Oh, and there was a head poke then. A couple of hours in here. Peanuts are peeling because that marginal spot could do bites again during the morning period this morning. But it's a decision. Sit on our hands. We're still heading towards the time when the fish are active out in this area here, so it could be that they'll drift in our direction. Otherwise, it's a possible move again on the cards. The swampy swim looks good. Like there's probably been a dozen carp troughing it up in a particular zone in line with the end of the big buildings on the other bank. We'll see. It's early, there's still time for a bite, but I feel a move is on the cards imminently. Not that many years ago, my best mate turned around to me and told me that I was the least observant angler he'd ever met. And you know, that really stung, but what it did do was give me the impetus to actually watch what's going on, and by watching it you can't help but become more reactive in your fishing. If you see something, you can't really sit there as an angler and not get off your arse and chase opportunities, and it makes life so interesting. It makes the days fly by. You're not just sat there on your Harris, tiny odd rig, you're actively fishing, and isn't that why we all do it? Chasing chances, watching fish show. Obviously in the spring and the summer when they're up and running, you get a lot more chances to follow and chase, but no matter what time of the year, it's arguable that in the winter, when you see an opportunity, it's even more important to follow your nose and chase after a chance. So for me, it just brings an extra dimension to my fishing. No more sat on a chair doing bugger all. It's try and catch a fish, and that means getting up off your bum and chasing those chances. That was the perfect example of why being proactive is always on balance better than sitting on your laurels and hoping fish come to you. So I only had time to get one rod in, hadn't even started rigging up the second rod. Little lead, which I know isn't fashionable and everyone likes a big lead, but for getting a rig in quietly, 1.5 ounces of pointy lead feathered in so it gently goes in my opinion, reigns supreme. And it was on the spot that we baited just before we shifted over onto mix on the point over there, and literally it's just popped out the clip, fishing a tight line, mono this time, so everything's cushioned and nice. It's popped out the clip, and we've got a really quick bite. That's got to be like 3 or 4 minutes from when the rod went in. Get out that snag, well, edge of it, and that's what I love. Reactive fishing, little leads. Back in the swim that we started our little journey in. There's a nice little slate grey mirror with some scales on its side. It's even last night's hook bait. Didn't change it, didn't feel like there was any need whatsoever. It was in perfect condition, hook point was sharp. Just plipped it out there on the wraps, edge of the bush, and a nigh on instant bite, which is absolutely wonderful. Love fishing like this. Now he's got a bit of fluff on his eyes, he's going to come in, I reckon. Lovely. Hey! That is, to coin a much used phrase, what I call fishing, not camping. That's a corker. Absolutely lovely. Let's get the sling wet. That's one of the fastest bites that I've had this year. There was no way that rod was in the water for even 5 minutes. And it's literally just started raining, and it's amazing how these things happen on a weather change. Watching them fizzing and feeding and moving towards this corner, the little bit of boilie we put in, it's resulted in a super quick bite. Getting a little lead in on the spot, first chuck, was all that needed to be done. And here we have my second Cambridge carp, and once again, £26. Absolute perfect, and there's fish feeding, so we're gonna get this back and get the rods resorted and get everything settled before this rain sets in properly. Happy, happy days. Go. Put her back. She's got a lovely shaped face. Beautiful. Absolutely made up of her. Oh, go away. You're alright. Got you. She's alright. There you go, girl. I love it. He says in a super squeaky Cambridgeshire voice, I love it. We've got to the afternoon, mid-afternoon now. The forecast rain's come in and it looks lovely. Oh, it looks so carpy. The wind's still blowing up onto this kind of like car park bank, for want of another word, and things are looking nice. Got to reset the rods, had a bird pluck on the margin rod, the rod that I'd had the bite on earlier, but not a lot else has happened in the meantime. Been sat about, chewing the fat, talking rubbish, and really now it's just a case of setting traps for the night. There's been the odd fizzer about, but they dwindled away slowly as the afternoon went on. It's often the way. The first afternoon I arrived, when I did the laps, it was quiet, and then things slowly picked up as the light levels went, and expecting hopefully to see a repeat of this morning with fish over in this corner and hopefully the chance of a bite. So the plan is reset the rod on the right hand margin. That's the one that I've had the 2 bites on so far. Had a lovely crackdown spot at the left hand end of the island, not too far out, and probably have a little explore on somewhere to put the 3rd rod, but that's yet to be done. A little bit of leading, try not to make too much noise just in case there are still fish in the vicinity, and we'll see what the evening brings. But conditions are looking absolutely prime. The wind's still blowing onto this bank. It's mild, it's drizzly, the air pressure must be plummeting, and we're on a pucker moon phase, so only an absolute noddy could fail from this point forward. Even if we do, had 2 bites. It's been absolutely lovely visiting the St Ives fishery, and I'll walk away a happy man. But it would be nice to catch a good one, you know. Like, there's fish up to upper 40s in here, and even though the dream of catching one of them is probably a little bit far-fetched, we go fishing with dreams. That's what keeps us going, and with a bit of luck, we'll have a little bit of luck in the night and catch something a little bit bigger than 26 pound, but we'll wait and see. One of the great things about coming out and doing video shoots like this Insights one is we get to visit some historic and wonderful venues. We're privileged, luckily, because I know good old Big Gordon, to be given permission to come to the famous St Ives complex, and today we've been fishing on the Lagoon. Any carp anglers that have been around the block for a while would know the lagoon for having real history with great big fish like the Fat Lady residing in here in the past. But under his stewardship, it's once again flourishing with a really good stock of up and coming fish, predominantly 20s and 30 pounders with a smattering of 40s up to a top ceiling weight of Callum's column, which has done 48 pound 10 ounces now and is growing. So it's a super rich lake. It's a beautiful venue. It's got everything from intimate little bays to long chucks at islands. You get in the edge and the amount of naturals is unbelievable. It's not surprising they're flourishing. Beautiful part of the world, lovely skies in the evenings and in the mornings, and lots of opportunities to catch some really cracking carp. Last evening update. It's been a lovely trip. Had all sorts of weather, sun, big southerlies. Now the wind's weirdly done a northwesterly, which wasn't forecast till the morning, and it's blowing the opposite way to the clouds, but I think that's just going to bring in a little bit of rain. The rods are set. I've just poked round into the reeds on the right hand side. I left it late to put the bait in because the black chickens had been diving on the area earlier on. I watched them drift off across the lake about half an hour ago, so coast was clear, snuck in there, put in probably 40 or 50 boilies, so enough in a margin to get a bite, certainly, and we'll see. Rods are out there lovely, bit of bait on top of them, with a bit of spodding and a bit of swearing, but that's perfectly normal, and it looks lovely. The rain's just setting in now, so I'm going to wrap it up and hopefully see you in the morning with a kipper. You never know. Try and be upbeat, but we had one come off in the night, just a hook pull. Oh, it's painful. Just a nice bite on the locked up rod, the rod that's done all 4 bites so far. We got it out, it was kiting away, had it on for about 20 seconds, thought we were home free, just a nice slow ploddy kite left, and she just fell off with a big burr on the hook point as she left. So I got the rod back out there in the night, and the direction was right and it was on the clip right, and I was pretty sure it was accurate, but there was that niggling thing I've had many a time on nighttime chucks where you think, I need to be certain. Like with the morning feeding period being 9-10 o'clock in here so far, it was at 8 o'clock this morning, and I just thought I need to double check it, and I reeled it in, and whether it's where I hadn't hit the clip quite perfectly on the rechuck, like it just caught the clip as it went in the water. There was that telltale kink just down from the loop on the monohook link that said it was on the bottom, it was wrong, it wasn't right. So I made the right choice then. In the night when I had that bite, I managed to kick the left-hand rod completely off the rest, so I reeled that in this morning as well and just swapped that over onto a choddy, because despite getting lovely clean cracks out there, when I reel in, it's bringing a lot of green fluff, you know, like I'm worried that it's just drifting about on the bottom and obscuring the hook bait, so I thought better safe than sorry, have a proper one out there, and we're just sitting it out. The fizzing and activity and rolling that we saw yesterday morning has just fallen off a cliff. Like you can see a big portion of the lagoon here, all down the windward side, the north bank. Pretty much if I stand at the front of the swim, I can see the whole of the old lake, and there's the odd bit of fizzing, like there's a little bit out there just right now, but nothing like it was. And I don't know, people that look at moon phases probably would correlate that with the phases we've had while we've been here. Like the last 2 nights have been absolute on peak, like, and the activity in the mornings has been as you'd expect, but today much quieter. We're gonna hang it out. At least the rods are reset and they're fishing perfect now. And it's just a case of fingers crossed, and with a bit of luck, we'll get one last opportunity on the right hand rod, if nothing else. There's little fish plinking over it right now, and a little spray of bubbles came up. So there's life along that margin. Without the expansive weed in the lake, I'm not surprised the margins are going to be king. Wind's due to swing. It's just fingers crossed for the next like hour and a half, 2 hours, and hopefully we'll see you again. But if not, it's been a great trip on a beautiful, beautiful lake. I'll definitely be coming back. So enjoyed this one. Really enjoyed it.